This is the Perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah!
Gun to your head, what if you had to double your productivity? What would you do?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I am your co-host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me, as usual, the man, the myth, the legend, Micah Shalansky. Micah, how are you today, my friend?
Jarvis, I'm doing fan-friggin-tastic. I got to say, we got another beautiful day here in Alaska, so I can't really complain too much about that. We have some exciting stuff to take a whack at and really kind of talk about some big things for this next year. Got some audacious goals, both on the financial planning side, a little bit on the personal side, definitely on the TPR side, and just really excited to crush it.
Well, a couple quick questions for you, Micah. One, is there enough daylight in January for this to be considered a day in Alaska? Question number two, in the intro quote, you said, gun to your head, what would you do? I've been to gun defense training with you. I know what you would do. It wouldn't be double your productivity.
Well, I guess it all depends on how we're being productive in that particular moment. But sure, just throw the wallet at them and run away, right?
Break both their arms.
But so the daylight question is a solid question, but it really depends on like how much daylight do you need? If you only need 10 or 15 minutes daylight a day, I'm just telling you, Alaska has plenty of that. Every day, unless you're in some parts of Alaska, you have at least 10 to 15 minutes of daylight.
Perfect. Well, I guess if you back off and think, how much time do people actually spend outside in the daylight? There's probably enough daylight in Alaska all times of the year to compensate for that, right? Like most people spend their entire day inside, at which point, who cares if it's light out, I guess.
Unless you're at the top of Alaska, right? A little Alaska trivia, because at the top of Alaska in Barrow, and somebody's going to Google this, but don't worry, it's right. There's about 61 days in the wintertime where the sun does not come above the horizon. That's in Barrow, Alaska. Now, the reverse is also true in the summertime. There's about 61 days where the sun does not go below the horizon. So I've never been in that environment for 61 days. So I imagine that could be a little bit tough, but yeah, there you go.
Well, to each their own.
So how to double your productivity? Move to sunlight. Maybe that's it.
Move to sunlight.
Step one, podcast done.
That's right. Bar room trivia. We're set. Micah, something you and I run into all the time, joking aside, is, we've now had the opportunity to coach hundreds, probably thousands of advisors, is we hear constantly this idea of, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time, which is always and everywhere a myth. So anytime you find yourself saying that, just say, all right, well, that's a myth. That's a victim mindset. But let's play a fun game. This is a game you and I often play of what if we had to? What if we had to double? What if we had to see twice as many clients? What if we had to be twice as productive? Not that we would necessarily be able to get there, but that kind of framework really opens up your mind to thinking, all right, well, what would I do in this case?
Jarvis, I love that. And I'm going to take this. There was a mentor of mine years and years ago when I first got started in Rotary, in the downtown club in Rotary. And he brought up to me and he says, now, Mike, I want you to watch people. And I want you to watch for the minute that they say they don't have time for Rotary. And then what I want you to do, as soon as they say they don't have time for Rotary, I want you to stop. And in your mind, I need you to change that to say Rotary is not important enough to them to come. And then if you want to grow Rotary, you got to fix that problem. How do you make it more important? And it was such a brilliant insight, right? Because anytime we say we don't have enough time for something, now I love time. I'm amazed by it all the time. I think it's fantastic because we all have the same 24 hours in the day, right? It doesn't matter if we're Elon Musk. It doesn't matter if we're a bum on the street. It doesn't matter if we just graduated college or where we're at in our career. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. And I absolutely love that because that is the great equalizer. Every day we get to wake up. Every day we get to choose how we're going to spend this next 24 hours, etc. And you get to choose every single day is a reset, not a new year reset, not a quarter reset. Every single day is a reset. How are you going to choose to double your productivity? How are you going to choose to crush the day or not crush the day and be lazy? That's your choice. Now, it's easy to get caught in, at least for me, Jarvis, in a victim mindset, right? Of saying, look, I got to wake up. I got kids to deal with. I got school to deal with. I got things to do, blah, blah, blah. I run multiple companies. I mean, whatever those excuses are coming to mind, we all have them. But what I really love about this example you said of there is a gun to your head is it really kind of clarifies things just a little bit. And it really says, well, no, I have to make a decision. And it gets me out of that victim mentality, right? Kind of pulls me out really quickly and said, no, I have to come up with a creative solution now. That doesn't mean it's a great solution, but I have to come up with a creative solution. And it kind of helps me get going in a productive mindset.
Boy, I love that. It is a fascinating thing. It is the great equalizer, and it's the ultimate currency at this point in sort of the world's evolution, right? So we look at, we'll pick on social media or electronics as an example, right? Ultimately, they're selling people's time to marketers, to vendors. So there's this entire infrastructure, tens of billions of dollars being spent trying to extract time from you. And while everyone says they don't have time, magically, Netflix can get people to watch an average of 10 hours a week of Netflix. Like, there's a lot of time that's available. I want to highlight something though quickly on this victim's mindset. If you're saying, hey, I don't have time for this, that reflects through into your client meetings and it reflects through into your prospect meetings. Now, you would never say to a client, hey, listen, Mr. or Mrs. Client, I don't have time to have you as a client. Or to a prospect, hey, I hope you say no because I really don't have time to work with you. But it's in your presentation.
Yes.
If you're running into that meeting at the last minute, heaven forbid you're late. May the Lord strike you down for that.
Oh.
But you're running in the last minute, you know you don't have bandwidth to follow up on it. You know you don't have bandwidth to work with it. That is reflected in the meeting. The prospect knows that. They know saying that something is registering with them. Something's wrong here. This guy probably doesn't have bandwidth to work with me. Now, some people can cover that up better than others, but I'm telling you, if you're telling yourself, I don't have time, your mind, the universe, everything is going to conspire to make that a reality, and not getting more prospects or not keeping clients is going to be one of those side effects.
Yeah, your beliefs equal your actions equal your results, right? Yeah, we stole that directly from Joe Lucas. He talks about that. Coach Joe talks about it all the time, which I fully agree with. Your beliefs determine your actions determine your results. And then guess what? You have evidence now, right? You will look at all this evidence based on my results. Now I go back to the beliefs. That's why I believe that. You started the cycle, right? You can stop it as well. But where do you want to be inside this? Jarvis, like I said, I got in a little bit of trouble the other day.
Yeah.
I don't think I've told you this story, which is even better because I'm going to say it live, is we're doing our faith formation. So every Wednesday night we have a faith formation at our house, a big potluck, a bunch of kids, a bunch of Catholic families. So you guys can do the math. We only have 2 kids. There's 4 or 5 families that show up and there's about 30 kids in my house. So yeah, good Catholic families. And we go through faith formation. Anyways, they have this exercise for this couples counseling that they're demoing. And you had to put different things in different blocks. What's in your control and what's outside of your control.
Oh, sure.
Right. Okay. So then by default, I think by you and I's personality, just on average, what would you default more towards? You don't know what the questions are yet, but if you had 2 categories, in your control, outside of my control, where do you think you're going to put most things?
Basically, everything is going to go inside my control. Even things like the weather,
yes.
I want to be like, probably in my control because I can move somewhere where the weather is accommodating to me. So pretty much everything is going to fall into in my control. But go on, you're starting really curious now. Yeah,
pretty much. So it had those different categories that was there. And one was like, how much free time do you have in your day? Was it in your control or outside of your control? And the next one is the stress that comes from your workday. Is that inside of your control or outside of your control? Anyway, so we get in this good conversation going on with the group. And basically, I want to put damn near everything in the control box, right? Couple things, I forget what they were. I was like, okay, sure, I could see how those are outside of my control. But
I
then
love
it was
how
like,
for those of you listening, Micah did quotation marks with his fingers. Like, I guess those are outside of my control, but go on.
Sure, go with it. And it was like, what it was like free time. The thought was you can't control how much free time you have because it's dictated by other circumstances. And I'm like, no, you dictated the other circumstances. You are the ones that set that up. They're like, well, I have 6 kids. You chose to have 6 children. And thank God you did, right? I think it's fantastic. Yeah. But you chose that life. So these are actions that you're putting forward that dictate these other things. The career path you chose, your work productivity, your work schedule. Do you surge like a successful advisor or not surge like a lazy bum? I don't know, right? These are all in your choices, your decisions that you can make. So when you come to this aspect of doubling your productivity, keep in mind, it is 100% inside of your control and what you can do. And where I got in trouble with the group is I was like, nope, everything's in my control. Everything's in my control. Everything's in my control. And it was like, no. And Kelly's like kicking me under the table. I'm like, why are you kicking me? And it was like, that's not in my control. And she's kicking me even more.
I love it. I think kind of the opposite extreme on that, Micah, is that we don't need to be shaming ourselves. So there's this like victim mindset. I don't have time. Well, that's a total myth. The other, I think, opposite extreme can be like, I should be doing these things. I should be a better parent. I should be a better whatever. That doesn't empower you either. That just creates guilt and shame. Brene Brown talks about this a lot. And so I think the middle is acknowledging the reality of it. Like, hey, I choose to, whatever that is. If you say, hey, I choose to not do surge meetings, I would fill that in with because I'm a lazy bum of advisor. That's fine. You can choose that, but don't ever say, hey, I don't have time for clients. I don't have time for my family. I don't have time for these things. I choose, right? I choose to allow 17 alerts on my phone so I can't focus. All right, you can choose that. I wouldn't, but you can choose that.
Yeah, I mean, all of these little things that really can rob your productivity. So back to the podcast topic
Yes.
that's there is, if you had to double your productivity, what would you do? What one thing that I would do is I would get a computer program. If I had to double, I would get a computer programmer, maybe it's a Tentis or something like that, to lock my computer down where I could only work on one task at a time. It would force me not to allow to have multiple tabs open. Imagine that. Imagine if I had to create some social posts, if I had to record content, if I had to do client correspondence, anything like that. All I could do was just that one thing, and I couldn't open up any other tab, any other program, any other application until that was done. Imagine how much stuff you could crank through.
Wow, I'm actually just thinking of just now. This morning I was on a call with my Jarvis financial team, and I was trying to figure out which Google Chrome window had the thing we were talking about. And even just, we've all been there, right? It's like, I have 47 Google Chrome windows, and somehow it's never on the tab that I click. But even just, let's say that only took me 3 seconds to figure out. It's still an enormous brain drain, and even 3 seconds times 100 times a day times all year. In fact, I just recently saw a thing in Stephen Pressfield's newest book, Put Your Butt Where Your Heart Wants to Be. He didn't use butt, but I try not to swear as much anymore. And he says, if you do something for an hour a day for a whole year, that's the same as 9 40-hour weeks. So you say, that's not really taking me very long. Well, if it's an hour a day for 365 days, that's the same as 9 40-hour weeks. So Micah, to your point, hey, if your computer just forced you can work on one thing at a time, that would be an incredible productivity boost.
It'd be fantastic. I think the next thing I would do, I don't know if this is what we're supposed to do on our outline or not. Jarvis is great because I was running a little bit late to this. He wrote the whole outline together and I'm not even following it. So sorry, bud. I would say the next thing I would do is I would limit how people could talk to me. I would pre-organize when, not family, but pre-organize when office members could talk to me. And I would not allow any phone calls, not just D&D. I wouldn't even be able to see their phone calls or messages to a certain time. So maybe I get a whole different number and I can only log on to it. Because how often does somebody else kind of call us with, hey, one quick question? There's no such thing as a quick question.
No.
Right. If it wasn't that quick, you could have answered it. And so, but you get sucked into these other things and you're not being hyper focused at what you should be doing. Man, I think if you did like those two things, you could like quadruple your productivity. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, another one I would add is blocking websites. So this is, again, you can go to your MSP, your tech company. We use Attentis and say, great, block for me the following websites: the Wall Street Journal, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Netflix, the ESPN, like whatever sites you find yourself going to. And again, I know you say, hey, I don't spend that much time on it. I bet you do. I bet if we pulled your time logs, you would find that you're spending hours and hours there. Yeah. But just to go online and block those sites, whatever your guilty pleasure is. When I was at a Dave Ramsey conference, they talked about always have something to go back to. So just on your daily list, when I get distracted, I will go back to X. But again, if you had to double your productivity, gun to your head, block those sites, make an incredible difference.
No, this is one of the things that we've done with our teams at different times is going through Attentis. You can put a time tracking software on people's computers. Now, we don't do it to say, hey, are you being productive or not? Because if I have to go to a team member and put time tracking software because I don't think they're getting their job done, I'm just going to allow them the ability to update their resume. And we're going to move on with that. I'm not going to look at this. But if I want to look at it and say, hey, let's really improve our time. And I get a team member that says, you know what, I'm not sure where I'm wasting my time at, which we're all guilty of. It's fantastic that they can articulate that. Well, great. Let's install this and let's see where you're spending your time. And now we have numbers, right? Now we have a metric that we can benchmark off of and say, okay, what was I really doing? And Jarvis, I love that idea. What's something you can go back to right away?
Another thing that I would do that we've actually recently doing has been brought to my attention. We recently hired a new integrator, a CEO of sorts for the Perfect RIA, Melissa. She's phenomenal. And we were on a call with her, our weekly call. And I said, hey, I'm going to take care of this. And she said, Jarvis, I'm going to stop you right there. I will get that taken care of. That is not for you to take care of. So the action on there is have someone in your world who is looking out for your productivity, who understands what your highest and best use is. So for her to say, hey, listen, Jarvis, that is not a task for you to do. It wasn't, by the way, because she wanted to do it, because she's like, well, you know what would be fun to do is this task that Jarvis just created for me. But she realized, hey, listen, I need Jarvis to do these things that he's best at doing, and everything else I've got to get off his plate. So that action on there is you need to have a team around you who understands the importance of your time and who you have the professional respect that when they say, hey, listen, Jarvis, you shouldn't be doing that. You say, you know what, you're right. I should not be doing that. Please take care of it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic. What's another thing for the team wise that I would do? I would help my team do. Yeah, I would help my team create the perfect week, so to speak, and help the team time block of when I'm available to help with them and when they need to do things their own. But really making sure when we have project time, they have dedicated project time. Maybe even go into it so far as shutting the office down for a certain period of time where we're tabling all client calls, et cetera, and they're only working on this. Easy example is whenever we do quarterly billing, that's what our team does who runs quarterly billing. There's no phone calls. There's no disturbances. That door is shut. That building better be on fire if you interrupt them while they're doing this, right? That's how serious this task is. Imagine if we treated all tasks that seriously, what would effectively be done, right? I think that could be an absolutely amazing thing to do with the team, and also making sure they understand that this is robbing them of their time if they pick up and put things down. So when we do a project, great RMD letters, fantastic. Make sure we're processing all RMDs, at least the letters going out all at the exact same time, right? So all clients know what's going to happen. Now, great news. We have Secure Act 2.0, and we have the updates from the IRS for last year and Secure Act 1.0, right, on RMD. So this is a communication we're making out multiple times to clients, and I want to have this go out one time to everyone across the board. I would say, well, Bill takes his early and June takes hers late, so we'll send June's later in the year. Yeah, no, everybody's getting this communication across the board. Now, if there's a reason we need to delay, we need to schedule that and talk with the team. How are we going to handle it? But we also have a drop dead date on when all RMDs are going to be done, period, end of sentence. If we do not hear back from the client, it will be distributed and done. In fact, when any new client sets up an IRA account, we're linking instructions automatically to bank accounts, et cetera, just to make sure that, no, this isn't an issue. I'm not waiting on December 15th to get paperwork in. When you open the account, it will be linked to your bank account, and we can push those RMDs so there's not, well, good news is there's not 50% penalties anymore, but still, so that
25% is basically free. Yeah.
Basically free. Yeah.
So related to that, a copy of that RMD letter is inside of our members portal because Mike and I have done very similar things in our practices, and that's available in there. And so that's something, Micah, when we just recently sent out our RMD letters, the one you described, and then before that, our 1099 letter, right. I sat down this time because we had some new team members. I personally sat down, I blocked 2 hours off, and I reviewed through all of those myself to quality control them. Because again, we had new team members, so it needed that extra layer of quality control. But I didn't say, let me do 5 here and 10 there, and I'll do 7 over here, and somebody nagged me. Colleen said, great, when do you want to do that? Let me block that in your calendar. All right, sit down and quality control those. So as much as you might think as an advisor, hey, if I have to do this 100 quality controls, it doesn't matter when I do them. It does. It makes a dramatic difference to say, I'm going to sit down and do all 100. Now, was I able to do all 100 at the same time? No, there were 7 that I had to go and set aside and I had to go back and look at, but 93 of the 100 I was able to get done, stamp them, get them out, done.
Oh, sorry. I got to pull something you just said right there. Fantastic. Yeah. Is when you hit this 1 out of 7 or 7 out of 100, that was like, I need further investigation. You didn't stop everything. Go spend 30 minutes researching that one. You grab that one from the pile, you scooted it over to the next pile that says, we got to work on these ones later. And you finish the other 93, right? That's a key to productivity. So often we get lost in saying, oh, I have to finish this one right here. No, I want to stay hyper productive when I can. I'm going to bust out as much things as I possibly can. Then I'm going to move on to the more challenging things that I need to spend that time and focus on.
Yeah, in fact, when I was doing those, I had our paraplanner sitting next to me. So I would write on that. Like you said, Mike, I would pull it aside and I would circle on it, this issue here, and it would be in that pile. Now I have my paraplanner sitting next to me, physically sitting next to me, and I say, hey, here's the issue with this. Go and take care of it while I'm working on these other ones, and then bring it back to me.
Love it.
So that's, again, how we take that productivity to the next level. But Mike, you're spot on. If we're on a task and we get rabbit holed, whether it's a legitimate thing like solving an issue or something like, hey, I wonder what the market did on Tuesday of 10 years ago, that's not time that we need to spend.
Right. Yeah. Super, super important. All right. Another thing that I would do is I would book out of the office, out of internet time. I didn't do it this last year. I normally take kind of a month off and go hunting where there's no cell phone service, there's no internet. It's fan-friggin-tastic. I didn't do it. And I'm definitely feeling the effects of not doing that, right? Not to be dramatic about it, but definitely feeling like I don't have the same kind of energy going into some things. I'm having to kind of summon a little bit more reserves, kind of pushing into it. And I was kind of reflecting back and saying, what was that? Well, you know what? I had this dedicated time that I was without technology, without internet, et cetera, and it really revitalizes me. So whatever that is for you, you need to find that, but that is not living in a land of connectivity. That is disconnecting from things, being more independent. You did the Grand Canyon trip is an easy example of that. You know what? And if you're going to go somewhere that's in the land of connectivity, great, get a new cell phone. right? Get a new phone number. Don't bring your normal stuff. Don't bring your work login stuff. Go for a while and make sure everything can function and work. And the only way you're going to do that is by actually doing it. But having those hard deadlines for me, Jarvis, are really important. So I'm headed off on a trip, and I want to spend a lot of dedicated time with the family on this trip. And so one of the things I looked at was saying, well, crap, I'm a little bit behind in some of my content production. So as soon as I get back, either as soon as I get back on the trip or on the trip, I need to do more content production. I was like, well, that's a horrible idea, because all I'm going to do think about on the trip is that I'm behind in content production. My mind's not going to be with the family. Okay, so I got to fix this. So today I did 4 podcasts and 8 videos. And it was before noon we got this done. And so, well, 3. This one's shortly after noon. So fair enough. So 3 podcasts and 8 videos are done before noon. So I don't want to hear people's aspects of they don't have time to do it. No, you're just choosing not to do it. And you're choosing something else is more productive.
Something I want to add to that creativity space, Mike, and you've really exercised that muscle of, hey, I need to create content. I'm going to just sit down and do that content. Not, I'm going to create content until I feel like checking Facebook. I'm going to create content until I feel like researching on the Wall Street Journal, whatever the case may be. Something that I've started doing recently is whenever I'm in a content creative space, like I need to create content, I begin to make sure all my tabs are closed and blocked off. And then I have a book that I enjoy reading next to me. And so if I find myself stuck, my default is let me go on the internet. Instead, I say, great, like I said, I'm working in Stephen Pressfield's book, which I love all of his books, and I have them on my desk and I pick them up. And if I'm not making any progress, I'll just sit back and read his book. It's almost poetic. And then that will get my creative juices going and I'll get back to what it was. Whereas if I go on the internet is designed to be incredibly addictive. It's literally designed for that. It's not a conspiracy. It's literally designed for, I'm never going to be in the internet and be like, oh, you know what I should do? I should be creative. No, I'm going to think I should just click on another tab. But if I'm reading creative work, it could be listening to music or art or whatever your creative space is. Again, know what your vices are for productivity. Yes. and have a hack, have a way to work around that.
One of the things for me is third-party obligations. So one of the things, like if I have all day at the office to get something done, I would not have got all this content recorded in the morning. I would have made excuses for it. Then I would have waited till the afternoon. Then I would have said, you know what? I'm not really at my peak performance in late afternoon. I should just do them tomorrow, AKA never. Right. But if I say, hey, look, I have a third party obligation that I have to be at. This is self-imposed. I get that, but it's how I need to hack my brain to be more productive. So a good hack with that is great. Put more third party obligations inside of your life. You got to be out of the office by this time and you got to have all of these things done. Don't block it on. I think this is another mistake people make is they put all of their tasks they have to do on the calendar and then they feel overwhelmed because their entire day is all fed up. They say they don't have any time for anything. It's like, well, Parkinson's law, things take as long as you allow them to take. If you allow that task to take 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 2 hours, it's going to take that much time. I want one block and says, great, I got to get all my crap done by 9 a.m. And here's the list of everything that I need to get done. And then I'm going to take that. I'm going to batch it together and say, what's the consistent task that I can do? And then what are the times or in between tasks that I need to take a step out, walk out on my deck, go do something else, and then come back, right? I'm not going to powerhouse from 6 a.m. to 9 going through that whole thing. I'm going to take a little break, 5 minutes, step outside, then come back to it. And for me, that's more productive. You read a lot about this in Peak Performance. So that's just something you got to figure out for yourself what it is, but don't sabotage yourself by filling your calendar with a bunch of random tasks and thinking you don't have any time.
I think, Micah, last thing I would add on this list, just for the sake of time in this episode, is if I had to double my productivity, I'd get rid of my office chair. And I would get rid of all the office chairs in my entire office, especially for meetings. It's long been said, and I love this idea of whenever you're going to have a meeting, get rid of all the chairs. Because there's this thing, again, our minds, and this isn't a guilt thing, our minds are just prone to seek out peace and easy and laziness. It's just how we're sort of programmed. And so if I'm in a meeting and I'm relaxing in this nice, comfortable chair I have, I don't have any incentive to speed that meeting along, because as soon as I get done with the meeting, I've got to get back to work. So why don't I drag that out? Why don't I tell a few more stories, whatever the case may be? But if I'm standing and my feet are getting uncomfortable and I'm pacing back and forth, this meeting is going to get wrapped up quick. So again, these can seem like little things. I think, Micah, more often than not, when people are wishful, they just say, I wish I had more time in the day. I wish there was 26 hours. I wish there was 8 days. And the reality is all you need to do is use that time just a tiny bit more effectively. It'll change your whole world.
When you get caught in that, it's really hard. It's really hard to see the other side of it. So I totally get that. I am laughing just a little bit. One, I just sent my team a message, no more chairs in meetings. I can't wait till they read that. They come back, what the hell does that mean? We're like, I don't know. So Jarvis, when I got my home office set up, we were talking about different office chairs, and I had one that was very uncomfortable, and I was never sat in that office chair, and I'd always be standing up. So Jarvis was like, man, you got to get this other chair. It's fantastic. It's comfortable. I got the freaking office chair. It's great. I'm sitting on my butt all the damn time. It's so comfortable. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to stand up. So yeah, maybe I need to get rid of my, my chair.
Yeah. We won't confess on this episode how much those chairs cost, but wow, they are comfortable. So we talked about a lot of action items, a lot of things that you could do. And what the risk is there's so many ideas here that you will do none of them. And so again, this podcast is all about taking action. So after you've given it 5 stars on Apple or whatever podcast platform you listen to, really need to commit to something you're going to do. So I would encourage you, I love accountability, especially extreme accountability. Go to whatever social media platform you find yourself going to. Hopefully that's on a scheduled time and not when you should be doing real work. And commit publicly to whatever productivity enhancement you're going to do. Tag the Perfect RIA in that post, and we'll be glad to engage that. But whether that's, I'm going to get rid of all the alerts off my phone, something that Micah did for one of our team members when we were together just a few weeks ago. Or it's, I'm going to not work after 5 p.m. or I'm going to have time blocks. Whatever that is, commit to that publicly and really hold yourself accountable to it.
Oh, Jarvis, when we're working with advisors, and that's one of the things is that when they're checking their email on their phone, I'm like, hey, give me your phone. Let's remove your email right now. And, they've all agreed to this, but that pain and the agony, cause I do it with their finger, right? So it's their finger actually clicking the delete button. So I get it all set up, and then it's all set in their settings account. Then I grab their hand and I move it over to the finger. This one lady I'm thinking about in particular, she was like, she did not want to do it. I was like, are you okay with this? She's like, no. I was like, are we going to do it anyway? She's like, yes, and just the pain, because we get so addicted to those alerts. We get so addicted to those things, but you got to take action with that. So anyways, I think it's fantastic. March, we're going to have a power session. The one big mistake. Now, you've all heard about the one thing, right? From Curly, the one thing you got to do in life. Well, we're not going to talk about that, but we are going to talk about the one big mistake. So make sure you sign up for that power session. We're going to be going through some really important things where advisors just friggin' blow it. We all have problems, right? We all have issues, and we got to call a spade a spade. We got to self-identify these, and we got to fix them.
I love that. I love it. One more action item for you. Mark your calendars. The first week of May and the last week of September, we are doing Invictus Masterminds in May, and we are doing the Perfect RIA and Retirement Tax Services Summits in September. Again, if you need a peer group, if you're saying, hey, listen, I know these things. I listen to the podcast. I know what I need to do, but I don't actually execute, or I would really love to just look someone in the eyes who's doing it and hear them say, this is how I do it. These events are for you. So that's the first week of May for our Invictus Mastermind, the last week of September for the Perfect RIA and Retirement Tax Services Summits.
I love it. And stay tuned for the re-release of Delivering Massive Value by Matthew Jarvis. He has a lot of bonus editions inside of there. So a lot of the feedback got out of the first book, which went over fan-friggin-tastic, by the way. Kits is rated as one of the best books of the year. And a lot of the feedback was like, hey, they had some additional questions on it. Jarvis did a great job of creating a lot of bonus content for that. A couple of cool things are coming out. So make sure you're staying tuned for that.
I love it. Well, Micah, thank you so much. Thanks to all of our listeners. This year, 2023, is already shaping up to be another rock star year for the entire industry. And so until next time, happy planning.
Happy planning.
Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice.